My wife left me 3 months ago, but now she's begging me to take her back. Well, let me give some background information, as the situation will be hard to understand without it. I married the lady of my dreams, Denise, fake name, 7 years ago. We had been dating for 2 years before that, and it was like a dream come true. But that changed after our marriage. After our marriage, she began to feel depressed and out of sorts, and I ultimately convinced her to see a doctor, who referred her to a therapist, and from there we discovered she had depression related to things from her past that she was attempting to forget. I chose to be as helpful as possible, doing the most of the housekeeping while working 40 hours a week, and telling her to simply get herself in order, and that if she wanted to speak to me, I would be there for her. Before she went, she was still sad. She simply lies in bed and moans. She does nothing. We had no intimacy, no cuddling, no going out. My whole day was consumed by work and cleaning. Day in and day out, I worked my tail off, came home to a shambles of a house and began cleaning up, preparing dinner and so on. By the end of the day, I was weary, and all I could expect was Denise to dump more of her problems on me and whine about herself, me, and everything around her. I couldn't even hang out with my friends to get away from it all, because she would phone me all the time, claiming she was worried and everything, so I had no social life, not that I had time for it anyhow. But despite everything, I pushed on, hoping that she would eventually come out of it, and we could have a normal life together because I loved her and, as they say, for better or worse, and this was plainly the worst it could ever be. 4 months ago, she started seeing a new therapist, and 3 months ago, that therapist suggested she needed time away from me because her depression began when we married, and I could be the cause of it. The moment she told me I was crushed, I started doubting myself, blaming myself, worrying, but beneath it all, this creeping sense of having done everything for her, having sacrificed years of my life as a cash cow, and for her to lay in bed. And this is my thanks. Is it now my fault? But I denied that sensation, attempting to talk it out. But she opted to go and stay with her mother, claiming she needed time away from me, and that I was the source of her despair, and so on. Honestly, the whole debate is a fog in my memory. When she moved out, I spent the following month phoning her family, pleading and degrading myself trying to get her back, apologizing for anything I may have done wrong. Honestly, I was on the verge of giving up since I felt so hopeless at the time. But as the month passed, I couldn't help but feel relieved. I came home and it was quiet. I could indulge in hobbies I hadn't done in years. The place wasn't a mess every time I came home. I could relax, and 2 months in, I realized I could hang out with my buddies again, grabbing a beer, enjoying life, and slowly I realized I had been miserable this entire time. Slowly, that turned into more and more realizations until I realized I no longer loved her. I felt like my youth was wasting away. I could do much, much better than this. I felt like I was a caretaker of an old lady. Hell, I still looked good, and as I went out, I started regaining my self-confidence. Women would flirt with me. I felt wanted even though I never flirted back. After all of these realizations, I received a phone call from my wife, telling me she had made a tremendous mistake, that she was bawling her eyes out, that she was an idiot for believing the therapist's comments, and how much she loved me. For a brief time, I longed to say, yes, yes, please return. But I couldn't, so I just told her she had left me and I was done with this relationship, that I would get divorce papers, that I had wasted enough time as it was, and that this final action of hers was the nail in the coffin, that I just dropped the phone, started crying for a bit before turning in and feeling liberated. The problem now is that everyone in my family is telling me I'm making a mistake, that I should take her back, that I owe it to her to try to make it work, that marriage isn't always pleasurable, and so on. The thing is, I've never had fun in this marriage. I can't remember the last time I had fun and wasn't miserable. We're both young and fit, and we never even go out. Hell, the last time we had sex was over a year ago. All I'm to her is an as it appears, and I'd rather live alone than spend another hour taking care of her. But on the other hand, I question myself. Am I abandoning someone who is depressed? I'm embarrassed, and I feel like a failure. All I need is some advice. Update. Let me begin by thanking everyone who responded. There was a lot of insight, advice, and support, And while there were certainly a fair share of people looking for an argument, insulting me, making offensive comments, or trying to rope me into something called MGTO, the vast majority of responses were great and stuff I could work with. People who are in comparable circumstances, as well as those who are in the same scenario, but are the depressed party, have provided me with insights that I had not previously considered. Also, I apologize for not being able to answer to everyone. I tried my hardest to respond, but there were so many comments that I honestly couldn't keep up. But be assured that I read almost every single remark, so your advice did not go unnoticed, and I appreciate it. I ended up having a really good think about my entire situation, trying to weigh whether I would be able to give her another chance to begin with, as despite what my post would give away, I was a bit of an emotional mess after all, and honestly I sort of lacked control over my emotions, as you might have noticed in some of my responses. Sometimes I seemed nostalgic, forgiving, and nice, other times I seemed vengeful, resentful, and hateful. But I've been working on regaining control of my emotions over the last few days, and I can say I'm in a better position than I was a week ago, but it will undoubtedly take some time for me to recover from all of this. Now, on to what most people were probably hoping for. What happened this week that prompted me to publish an update post? After all that deliberation, I concluded that regardless of the path I would choose, as some people recommended, it would be my choice and my decision alone, not the decision of my parents, her parents, friends, or strangers on the internet, but mine alone. At the end of the day, it's a choice I'd have to live with. So I thought that if I didn't at least speak to my wife and gain some closure, I'd wind up regretting it all. So that is precisely what I did. 2 days ago, I decided to bring her to our house to chat about us, our relationship, what I would be doing in the future, her sadness, and so on, essentially just to get everything out on the table. It would be hard to narrate this whole chat, and honestly, it was about some extremely personal matters, so I wouldn't want to even if I could. So I'll instead attempt to break it down and provide a kind of summary. We ended up addressing our whole relationship, which was incredibly unpleasant and confronting, since it was about a lot of things that I, in particular, had bottled up for so long that it was difficult for me not to shout. I told her I was exhausted, that everything we tried clearly hadn't worked, that I felt like a doormat, that she wasn't the person I married, that these 3 months had been liberating for me, that I was tired of it all, that I felt like she wasn't doing anything to help herself, that she wasn't doing anything around the house, that a marriage is supposed to be a partnership, but that I felt like I was basically. She stated she felt bad about everything, and that the guilt was making her psychological condition worse. She said she hated watching me go to work, come home fatigued, and had to clean everything up until I basically passed out, which I might add is a massive step for her as she never admitted this. But she began acknowledging and apologizing for a lot of things in our relationship, saying that her time away made her understand how much I mean to her and how much she took for granted, and that she should have done better a long time ago. To which I replied that I felt like I had been effectively enabling her since, although I had tried to keep her on her medicine and everything, at the end of the day, it was always me tidying up after her, which probably made it easier for her to fall back into it all. My mind immediately wanted me to go with the obvious option of not taking her back, not giving her a chance, but honestly, in this discussion, she was the person I was once in love with. She seemed to take ownership of things, she seemed different in some ways, but I also knew the risks that came with taking her back, and honestly, I wasn't about to pull another Hail Mary. So I told her I'd be willing to give it a chance, but it wouldn't be the same as previously. I told her that before we could start, she needed to show that she was willing to put in the work. First, I told her she needed to get a part-time job. It didn't matter what kind of job she got, whether it was waiting tables, working at a clothing store, or working for a company, as long as she went every single time she was supposed to go, looked presentable when she went, and did her best at said job. Second, she knows I like going to the gym, so she would accompany me at least 3 times a week to help me get in shape, get some exercise, and most importantly, stay occupied in a healthy way. Third, she is going to assist her parents around the home while she is staying there. No more sitting in her room with her thoughts, shopping, dishes, vacuuming, anything. She is going to make an effort to do it every day. Fourth, as indicated by several, we were going on a date once a week. No more fleeing, not wanting to go outdoors, feeling self-conscious, no more excuses. Fifth, we were planning to go to couples therapy. I know we tried previously, but we'll try again. Sixth, she is going to a new therapist, will no longer lie about anything, and will do anything the therapist advises her. Seventh, if the therapist recommends medication, she will take them every time she is supposed to take them, and I will keep them with me, and she will take them in front of me. No more forgetting, no more not taking them, no more complaining, and if there are issues with them, we will try different ones, but she will stick to it. I told her that once we finish all of that, we can move on to the next stage of repairing our relationship, but until she does them and maintains them for a few months, there is no way I will continue our relationship. I know ultimatums are frowned upon in relationship advice, but I don't think I have much of a choice. To my amazement, she accepted, and to my even greater astonishment, despite the fact that it had only been 2 days, she was helping her mother and father around the home yesterday and has been searching for work, and her father also stated she seemed to be a lot more happy. Now, I know there is a long road ahead of me and that there is a good chance this will not work out and that I should not get too excited too soon. But honestly, I am hoping I get my wife back, and I felt I owed it to myself to at least give her this one last chance. Call me an idiot for giving her this chance, but perhaps I am an idiot. That was my update. I'm not sure if I'll make another. I hadn't even intended on making this one. I'd want to thank everyone who reacted to my last post for their insight and advice, and I hope you all live happily ever after or whatever.